Hello and welcome to the Joyful Living Podcast. I'm your host, Kimberly Dixon. The purpose of the Joyful Living Podcast is to share stories of inspiration, hope, and perseverance with everyday people, moms and dads, entrepreneurs, nonprofit organizers. The world we live in today can be a dark place sometimes. These stories are meant to uplift, inspire, and motivate you. The Joyful Living Podcast shines light into darkness. Today, my guest is Jonica Rowland. I met Jonica a few years ago, actually online initially, and we have become really great friends since that time. Jonica, tell everyone about yourself.
Hello, I am Dr. Jonica Rowland, and my doctorate is in business administration, so I focus on social impact initiatives as well as leadership, and then I focus on business consulting and financial consulting. And the reason I chose that aspect was because I believe society and business must come together, to make life work, the circle of life.
That is absolutely correct. So, we've had quite a few interactions together through Agape Accountability group, which you started, and I've spent quite a bit of time with. But because of our interactions in that group, I know that you lost your mother at a very early age. Would you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, my mother was murdered when I was around 10, and I did not get to experience that, but my brother did. He experienced hearing my mother getting stabbed and shot multiple times, along with a friend of the family who was the babysitter who failed to shield his bullet, and he was nicked in the hand with a bullet.
Wow, I didn't realize that.
And then my mother's friend, he died on the scene. And so I grew up, I wouldn't say I was sheltered, but I allowed myself to be in a shelter to shield myself from more hurt. And I would have maybe one or two friends, because I just didn't know who to trust.
Okay.
I didn't know who to trust, what was going on. It was a trial and all that. But then I ended up becoming a protector for my brother. I would protect my brother.
Okay. Because you said, did I hear you correctly when you said he was there when it all happened?
Yes, he was there when it all happened. So if anyone wanted to bother my brother, they would have to come through us. Because we were from Harlem, New York. And then we moved to a small town in North Carolina.
Okay. So what kind of impact do you think that had on you to lose your mother at such a young age?
Losing my mother at such a young age made me longing, of course, to have that relationship. And as a child, I always feared death. So no one really answered my questions about death.
Okay. And
then the next thing you know, my mother is gone. And so I was bitter. In some cases I was fearless and fearful, and then I was angry, and I was grateful to have my grandmother to protect us, and then being in a small town, people do what they do in a small town. You're walking around. Yeah, that's the children, that's the family, that's the girl whose mother got murdered.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that's very, very insensitive. So from there, on my journey, I ended up going to NC State, and they had a counseling center.
Ah, okay.
And so I started using the counseling center to go ahead and express my grief. And that was basically 8 years later.
Wow.
But during that period, I played the flute, the piccolo. I just escaped into another world through books.
Okay.
So I love to read and watch adventure stories. And right before she passed, there were the Kung Fu movies. So I was always preparing for something. Something happened. I'm going to have some Kung Fu. Or I'm going to be able to escape.
Yeah.
And no one's getting over on me. I'm not going to get caught off guard. So I spent part of my life looking in the rearview mirror.
So let me, you mentioned something interesting there as an odd paradox, but you said you were fearful and fearless at the same time. Explain that to us just a little bit.
Well, fearless. There was a time, God rest my brother's soul, when people would knock on the door, he would run in the closet.
Okay.
So by then, I'm not fear. I don't have any fear.
Okay.
I'm like, fearless. This is not going to happen again.
Okay.
Okay. And whatnot. So I was just always preparing. My grandmother always stayed prepared. And so you build this sense of how you want your future to be, and you building this sense of how you are going to survive, how I was going to survive through life.
Mm-hmm.
My grandmother did not need to see anyone else pass away while she was living, because my grandfather had passed away 6 months prior to my mother being murdered.
Okay.
And so I know what it's like to be around a grieving mother. Then you have grieving children.
Right.
And then since it was my grandmother, her grandparents basically were slaves. So it was like a cycle of what the black race goes through sometime when death and tragedy happens.
Okay. So, with the things that you went through as a 10-year-old girl, take a minute to just talk to that child who has just lost their parent, whether it be through murder or through, some accident or, a cancer diagnosis. Take a moment to just talk to encourage that child who is 10 or 12 years old who just lost the most important person in their life.
Just know that at 10 years old, I was grateful to know that people cared about me. And I learned to cry, and I learned to talk about how I felt. I could not talk about it without crying, and so as the years went by, I cried less. I didn't speak about it enough. So it's so important to ask for help.
Yeah.
Don't be ashamed to ask for help. Don't try to figure it out because you're only 10 years old, you're only 11 years old, and I lost maybe 7 to 8 years of my life because I had to grow up so fast. So be a child. Be a child. Ask for help. Express yourself. Don't express it in anger, because I didn't express mine overly in anger. I just retreated, okay? So be sure to ask for help, because help is out there. And even when you don't feel love, know that you are loved.
Yes. Thank you for that. And I mentioned earlier that, we know each other because of Agape Accountability Circle. So I know a little bit of more intimate details about your life. That's not the only grief that you've experienced. That happened as a child, but over the course of the last 2 years, you've also experienced a lot of grief there. Tell us about that.
Okay, so before 2018, 1991, I was pregnant with my first child, and my grandmother passed 5 months before I had delivered. And so then I was left with being pregnant, trying not to grieve while I was pregnant, because I know the effects of that a parent can have while carrying a child.
Yeah, the baby feels everything the mother feels.
Right, you have to eat right, you have to exercise right. So I did suppress a lot of it, and I said I'll just wait until I deliver. So my grandmother who raised me, she died at night in 1991 while I was pregnant with my first child. And then I was always preparing for something, because from that my brother had PTSD.
Yeah.
And so I spent my life not knowing when I would be a caregiver, because then I had a father who was sick as well, because they both grieved over my mother in a different way, because they're men, I'm a woman, and I went and got help earlier than they did. And so my father, he passed, and he died March, and we buried him April 2018. And then 60 days later, my 50-year-old brother died as well. They both died of massive heart attacks. And we buried my brother June, so that was 60 days apart. And prior to that, I always told people to get counseling, get help. I exercised. I slowed down, because when you are going to be a caregiver, or think you're going to be a caregiver, you have to allow yourself to be healthy.
Yeah.
You have to exercise, eat right, make sure you're taking care of yourself, because a lot of people who take care of their elderly parents or have to bury parents or loved ones, they have children themselves. So that sandwich generation must be prepared.
Yeah.
And that's the way you're raising the parents or taking care of your parents or a loved one, or you're raising your children, or it could be a niece or nephew, someone you have to raise.
Yeah.
So then you're caught in the middle, and in that middle spot, you have to be determined on how you are going to live and how you are going to survive. So by me having self-care and being in the Medicare market and benefit side, going to funerals, seeing what people went through when they grieved or they lost a loved one through estate planning and all that, I learned to practice what I preach.
Yeah.
And that's how I made it through. I let everyone know what's happening. I didn't hold anything in. If someone says some off-the-wall comment, I would think of something humorous, because I do have a humor side.
Yeah.
And then from there, I went to GriefShare. GriefShare.org is here in Wake Forest, but it is nationally known.
Okay.
In several states, GriefShare.org. And so I did go through a 13-week process, and I took a break from business, but I was able to go back into business right away because I decided not to suppress any grief.
Yeah.
Yes, we're always suppressing something, and when you suppress anything, eventually it's going to show up in your health.
Yeah.
And I knew my family did not need to take care of me early in life. Maybe at 80, 90 they will.
Right.
But it's my responsibility to make sure I was taking care of myself so
Right.
that I would not, I would say, be a burden no matter how much you love someone or someone loves you. If they have to take care of you prematurely, you are affecting their lives as well.
That's true. That is absolutely true.
And it's hard to leave a legacy if you're not healthy and you're not around to have that balance and create wealth. And there are just so many phases in our life. Our phases of thinking about our careers, retirement, and then leaving a legacy. And those are things we need to think about in advance so that we can prepare. This is a journey of life.
Right.
We either want to love it and live through it and help others to improve their lives as well as our lives, or we just accept the roller coaster, right?
Well, that leads me to my next question. You have experienced a lot of grief in your lifetime, and to lose your father and your brother, and I know from being a baby sister to some wonderful brothers and still having my father, those men are so very important in our lives.
Yes, they are.
So what kind of realizations did you have about life losing your father and your brother so close together?
I'm grateful I have my husband, and then my father's brother.
Okay.
By the way, he did 3 tours of Vietnam.
Family is everything.
Family is everything. So I've been married 31 years, 32 years. And
did it change the way you interact with your husband or with your sons?
Let's see. Well, it changed a little because while I was doing my self-care, and prior to that, I always had family first. Family first,
yes,
and stuff. And so I was grateful that I was able to cherish the moment with my father and then some with my brother before they passed. And it did affect my family a little bit more than it affected me in some matters, because they did not prepare as much and whatnot. And the biggest thing that really helped me to continue the love is before my father passed, I said, "I love you, Daddy." And then he says, "What's that you say?" And I said, "I love you." And we did not know a few days later he was passing.
Wow. You know, that's one thing
it's so important to tell people you love them now.
Mm-hmm.
And I keep telling my sons and my husband I love them.
Right. Okay. You know, because that is absolutely something that is so important, to cherish the people that we have with us while they're here. Because unfortunately, some of us are going to die young. Some of us are going to die old. Some of us are going to be healthy when we pass away. Some of us are going to be sickly. But when you treasure those people who are in your life as they are in your life right now, today, then when they pass away, when you pass away, because that's one thing the scriptures teach us, that no man knows the day or the hour. We're all going to return to the dust from which we came. That we should treasure the ones that we have in our life today. Yes, don't take anything for granted, because we never know when it's going to be you hope you're going to have many, many more conversations with your parents, your siblings, or whomever it may be, your friend. We pray for those continued and long life and long years, but the life is a journey, and it's going to have mountain highs and it's going to have valley lows. Yes. So we have to make sure that we treasure the people that are in our lives. And I'm really happy to hear that you are, actively telling your husband and your children that you love them. So,
can I say one thing?
Yes.
And forgiveness. You have to be quick to forgive. Because tomorrow is not promised. And forgiveness keeps you healthy too. Before my brother passed, now a few days before my father passed, I kept telling him I love him, because there's no perfect parent. I'm not a perfect parent. But
that's really important right there.
Yeah, so we need to really express that love. Now, how about a few days before my brother passed? Because he really couldn't accept the fact of my father passing, because he had PTSD. How about he said, Gina, that's my nickname, don't spread it. I have a problem asking for forgiveness. And I said, oh, George, it becomes easier when you learn to forgive yourself. You have not forgiven yourself. And then a few days later, he's passing.
Wow.
So I love you. I love you to my father, my brother. Forgive yourself. Yeah. And you'll be able to ask for forgiveness and forgive others. Yeah. And that's the biggest thing, forgiveness.
It really is, because it lifts a burden and a weight from you to be able to forgive yourself, because a lot of times in our lives, what we're holding over somebody else's head is actually anger with ourselves.
Right.
But when we learn to forgive ourselves, we can extend that grace to other people so much more easier.
Right. And I'm not saying self-sabotage or allowing someone to abuse you. Okay, you can forgive and move on. Yeah. But forgive yourself, forgive others, so that you can move on. Because that's the only way you're going to be able to dream big, take action, and leave a legacy.
I have to tell you that I'm very proud of you, because, I remember the Sunday. Well, thank you. It means a lot. That really means a lot to me. I remember when all of this took place, and you were telling the 100% truth. I remember you telling everybody what was going on. You stepped back for a minute, and you was like, allow myself time to grieve and to heal. And then when you were ready to start doing accountability group again, and when you were ready to start business again, you were ready, because you took the time that you need to heal. Yes. So, is there anything else you would like to say today before we finish up?
Yes, preparation is the key. Life is going to happen, okay? So you just have to take care of your health. You have to take care of the future. We have to prepare, okay? And as we prepare our loved ones, we prepare our friends, and we're just going to have that legacy, okay? So it's important for you to have a vision and stay on task. I keep a calendar. Everyone has to live by my calendar. No more squeezing in, because it throws me off my vision and my quest to help other people leave a legacy. Okay. Leave a legacy in business, life, and everything.
Yeah. You mentioned this, like your calendar. So tell everybody about your business and how to reach you if they're in need of your services.
Okay, well, my business is business, career, and financial consulting. I don't help you start the business, because if there's some free tools for you to use, I would point you in that direction for the free tool. I'm here to help you focus on your business sustainability, your retirement, your sustainability in life, which involves your career, and you plotting and planning how you are going to reach your goals. How are you going to reach your goals if you don't plot and plan it? How are you going to reach your goals if you're forever having to search the internet, which everything on the internet may not be the best for you, but then that's where
true.
you come in, and comes into play where you need Kimberly or I, those who've trained. Okay, we spent our life training.
We really have.
Education, as they say. But
certifications, again, education, all of that.
That's right. Fortification. Okay. So we know what we want to do. I knew why I went back to school. And again, it was for social impact, leave that legacy, financial sustainability, and my research on corporate social responsibility and marketing to minorities. It all comes to full circle and making sure we're all sustainable and showing us how we're going to reach our destiny.
Okay, is there a website or a telephone number?
I'm sorry. Yes, I'm Jonica, Jonica Rowland, ROWLAND.com. And then also I have a calendar. You can use CALENDLY.com// Dr. Jonica Rowland. So that's calendly.com / Dr. Jonica Rowland. DrJonica Rowland. And then my telephone number is 919-410-6386. Also, I'm at JonicaRowland.com.
All right, that's awesome. So, and guys, I had to book my appointment to have a consultation with her. We did a 15-minute call to prepare for this podcast, and then I booked an hour-long session so that I would be on her calendar so that we could record our podcast today. So make sure that you visit JonicaRowland.com and her calendar and book yourself that 15-minute consultation session so that you can plot and plan, so that you are sustainable and that you are prepared for life's journey.
Life journey, no matter where you're going, whether you have your business, corporate America, you're just selling 7 C's, you need to be sustainable.
That's true. Well, Jonica, thank you so much for being with us today and sharing your story with us. It was an absolute pleasure to have you here. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we close?
Yes. Dream big. Dream big, okay? Don't let anything get in your way, because your family is depending on you. Your friends are depending on you. And I have to say it, your country is depending on you.
Yes.
Depending on you to make that next invention, to bring those new ideals, to help improve on existing data. The company, country, everyone's depending on you.
Yeah. So guys, thank you so much for listening to the Joyful Living podcast today. I'm your host, Kimberly Dixon. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure that you like the video and hit the subscribe button so that you're notified every week when we post our podcast on Wednesdays at 5 p.m. If you're listening on Anchor FM or another podcast platform, be sure to subscribe to the channel so that you can be notified as well. And also hit the support button. You can support this podcast each month for less than a cup of coffee. Your support goes a long ways towards helping us continue to bring you these inspiring stories. Guys, thank you for listening and watching the Joyful Living podcast. I love you. Bye-bye.